Yeah, so like Sean Connery died today. So it's a somber day. Anybody that knows me, like both of you guys, like like I'm a big obviously I'm one of the biggest James Bond fans. Like the fact that like I like even when he died at and the 007 like Twitter account like posted, him dying. I was like, yo, like you should put No Time to Die on streaming to honor him. Like people wanted like because No Time to Die was supposed to come out in April, and then obviously this happened. Theaters closed. They didn't want to put it out, and then it was
Yeah,
supposed to come out next month.
well, I was supposed to be in London. I was supposed to be in London when it premiered. That was my big
Yeah,
thing to
that's
see
right. You did say
the
that. Yeah.
second movie ever. But yeah, I like James Bond. I just never seen it. But sorry, Juwan.
Nah, just shooting the shit. But yeah, they so then they postponed it to November, and obviously like after seeing that like Tenant, since WB like pushed like Tenet out, and obviously it didn't do as well because this is a movie like Tenet was supposed to do like billions, like a billion or whatever, at least like somewhere up there. And so far, it came out in August and it's October, and it's only made $325 million worldwide. So they took that hit. So a lot of the other movies they're trying to like push it back. So they're trying to push back all the blockbusters till whenever movies are the theaters are filled again. So I was long story short, I was kind of hoping like in response to Connery like dying, like they would have put No Time to Die on like streaming because there's very few movies I would like pay the full like $25 or whatever the hell it costs to like rent. And obviously that would have been one of them because it was probably the movie I'm most anticipating seeing this year, and I'm gonna have to keep waiting. But he died, and I was telling Joel. I was telling Mike because Mike's actually the one that sent me the Mike. You sent me the thing to
I waited a couple hours because I don't want to be the one to break bad news. I saw it. My girlfriend showed me like at 7 in the morning, and I go, I can't show him yet. Let him sleep. I was like 3 hours later. I was
Well,
like,
I
oh
got
man.
like the thing is like now I got like my Alexa, so because I bought an Alexa on like Prime Day because like it's
Mm.
usually like $60, so they had it for like 18. So I bought one, so I got it in my room. So I set the alarm on it. So like me, like with your phone alarm, like you could just like turn over and then like tap it and then hit snooze or like turn off the alarm and just go back to sleep. And then like instead of waking up at like 10 o'clock, I'm waking up at like almost like noon. So with the Alexa, like you gotta yell at it. You gotta be like, Alexa, turn off the alarm. So it wakes you up and you're like already up. So I roll over and I look at my phone and then I saw that and it was interesting because I watch like YouTube videos and I was watching it was 10 movies that made people literally quit Hollywood. So off
Mm.
the top of my head, I already knew like Sean Connery was gonna be number one because like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, like the story behind that is right. So Sean Connery like 2000 like 1998 99 right. He gets the script for Lord of the Rings. They wanted him to be Gandalf, and he didn't understand it at all. And he was supposed he they offered him like a salary, and then on top of the salary, they offered him like a percentage of like the movie's profits. But he turned it down. So obviously, it's like the three movies he would have got like a percentage for each of them. So all in all, he would have ended up making like hundreds of millions of dollars just by being in the movie, whether you understand it or not. So he turned that shit down and then saw that it made money. So then another script comes to his, you know, house or whatever in the envelope. Opens it up and he's like, oh, like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He's like, all right, I don't understand this shit, but you know what? I learned my lesson. Like, let me just do it. And then the movie comes out, and it's like one of the worst movies like ever. So then he just says, you know what, like, all right, I'm like at that time he was like 70. So this is like, you know what, all right, this is a good enough time to just like call it a career. And he's been retired ever since. And like when Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out, like they tried to get him to be in it, um, but he turned that down because he enjoyed the retired life, you know. And then in Skyfall, uh, the two James Bond movies ago, probably like one of the best James Bond movies. It had a scene in where the movie took place in James Bond's like childhood home, and it had a groundskeeper that was like meant to be Scottish. So what they were gonna do was ask Sean Connery to cameo, put him on like prosthetic, put on like prosthetic a lot of makeup and a beard and make him look like different, and it would have been kind of like a cameo, but
Typically, typically,
exactly, but it would have been to me it would have been confusing because like it's just like fan theory that James Bond 007 like it's a code name, and that's why he's been around since like the 60s. So if they would have did that, it would have basically confirmed, that it was a code name. It would have confirmed that fan theory, but like he turned that down, and he's been retired. So I was watching that video, and it said like he's been enjoying retired life, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, like he's just it's crazy to think like he just stopped acting, and like he's basically just enjoyed like just being out of the spotlight, and he's just living out the rest of his like days, just enjoying the rest of his life. And unfortunately, like the rest of his life was just like yesterday. But what I find is like when a lot of these celebrated people pass away, like Kobe. People always like, there's always that segment of people I want to be like, oh well, he's not as great of a guy as you think he is. So what I'm alluding to is that like, in the 60s and 70s, like um Connery like openly talked about like, like you could slap your wife, or like you could be physical with your wife if like, like you feel disrespected and stuff like that. And he's an old dude from like Scotland. Um, so of course, like like when he probably grew up, like that was the way of doing things. I can't confirm or deny whether he grew out of that, because a lot of things we grew up you know being told was like the way things are. Like you grow up and through like experiences you realize that's not the way of doing things. But that's probably like the only knock you could have on like Sean Connery is like just his stance on that. But like I think that interview was like in 1970s, 1960s. So um
yeah. And then they brought it up again to him like in the 90s or like 87. And
yeah,
then I knew about this too because I took a film class about Hitchcock, and they were saying that Hitchcock and Sean Connery were like fucking relentless on Tippi Hedren in Marnie, just
yeah,
like treated her like shit and stuff. And like that was what they were telling me. I was all right. Well, it's an okay movie, but why do I need to know that they were dicks to her on stage? I mean, whatever. But yeah, I saw 4 James Bonds in theaters, pretty much everything. What I told Shog like a year ago, I was like, I'm gonna watch every single James Bond in a row. But there's no. I need to get the DVDs to watch it because it's on streaming. But I think now I'm gonna sit down and actually, one a week, watch every single one because
yeah. I had the entire collection up to Quantum of Solace. Like I
See?
had the whole DVD set, and I used to watch them all the time. And like every single James Bond movie I've watched, like at least, like at the very least 10 times. I have my favorites, I have my least favorites, and like somebody asked the other day, it was like, what would you get rid of? Like Marvel, um, Star Wars, James Bond, or something else? And I was just like, well, obviously James Bond over everything else because um the worst James Bond movie is still better than like the worst of like those movies to me. Cause like I still find something to like about even like the bad James Bond movies. Like Roger Moore was my favorite, and he starred in like some horrible ones. Like Pierce Brosnan also starred in like some bad ones. But I'd take Die Another Day over watching Thor: The Dark World or Rise of Skywalker any day. So that's why I always, you know. But then again, I'm a James Bond fan, so
Wait, is it also because it's like it's enclosed? Like it's not like Avengers. You need to watch like 100 movies to fucking know what's going on. Sometimes James
yeah.
Bond, it's like even though it's a character that's been 50, no, 60 years, it's like each story is isolated. You know,
Yeah,
so
it's like with James Bond, it's like like the same way, like, you know, like today for us isn't like a sequel to like yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a continuation of yesterday. It's like each, you know, like every day you go to work, like it's a different thing. So like with James Bond and each of his movies, it's like every new movie is like a mission that he's in. That's why like it would have not made sense. It would have not made sense for Sean Connery to do that cameo in Skyfall, because it would have been like, oh, like how are there two James Bonds, like, you know.
you know.
But
But yeah, I mean, rest in peace, Sean Connery. I was a huge fan in Last Crusade. One of my favorite movies of all time was Last Crusade,
yeah,
especially
and
like the roller coaster.
I was
That's
gonna
one of
say
my
that
favorite.
too. Like Last Crusade is my favorite Indiana Jones. And the thing about Last Crusade is the reason why Sean Connery is only like 13 or 14 years older than Harrison Ford. So
Junior.
the reason why they had Sean Connery playing um the reason why they had Sean Connery playing his father was because when they were creating Indiana Jones, like they were trying to create their own James Bond. And like they finally did Last Crusade, introduces that, and like to me, like Last Crusade is like, obviously Raiders is great, but Last Crusade is like my favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's
'Cause you got, cause,
complicated too.
cause,
Because that relationship, the father relationship, was really always good.
yeah, because you got James Bond and Indiana Jones, so it's like the two for one.
Mhm.
And then like, yeah, it's I
Cool.
love that movie. And then the chick in it, like,
Oh,
yeah,
she's a Nazi, but
Allison
hard to
Duty,
play.
yeah, Allison
Irish,
Duty,
Irish woman.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
like
But it's great. I love that. I'm gonna jump into the James Bonds. Of course, I've been trying to watch Last Crusade with my girlfriend for a while. She just will not have it.
yeah,
Uh, Sean Connery, great. I watched League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in theaters, and I was hooked. I think I
yeah.
bought a toy. I bought the toys at KB, but now looking back, I realized it was a mistake. But one of the great actors of all time history. Like especially like big movies.
But
You know.
yo, it's on a lot of the movies. I think if not all of them, like at least like the most of them, up until like, no, actually all of them I think are on Prime, because I think Spectre is the last James Bond. It's on Prime, and then they have all the Sean Connery ones. But
Uh,
you know, like you say, like I used to have. I don't know what the hell happened to them now. That's neither here nor there. I'm not gonna speculate, but I had a large DVD collection that I no longer have, but included in that was every single James Bond film up until Quantum. And up until Quantum.
that's the last one I saw in theaters. I saw one of them films. That was the last one.
Yeah.
They disappeared. So I saw. We'll wrap this up. I just want to real quick that I will watch them all over again. But
Hmm.
GoldenEye, I saw in theaters. Tomorrow Never Dies. The one, what's the one after Casino Royale? Is that Quantum of Solace?
Yeah, Quantum, and then Skyfall, and then Spectre,
That's the
and
third one. I only saw three movies, man. That's insane. Is that weird for me, like a cinephile like myself? I only seen three James Bonds.
well, I'll
I
tell
didn't.
you,
My dad didn't like James Bond. That's why he likes sci-fi and shit like that. So that's why, bro, in westerns and shit.
yeah,
Maybe that's
I'll tell you, like my mom had a coworker way back ago. So I used to go like in the summer. Sometimes I go with her. Like they let your kids come to work. Um, so she had like a coworker, and he was from England, and then he moved to Canada, and then moved to here to New York, and like I spent like the day with him, and then he told me all about like James Bond, and I didn't know, like as far as I knew, I didn't know that James Bond went back before like Pierce Brosnan. So he was like, yeah, like they had like at that point they had like five different Bonds. You had Pierce Brosnan, and he ran through them, and he was like Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton, um, Roger Moore. He was like this guy George Lazenby. He was only in there for one, and then of course like the first one was Sean Connery, and then I know Sean Connery from like him being in like The Rock and what's the other movie? He
for
was
the
in
'90s.
yeah, a lot of the movies in the '90s that Sean Connery was in, and I was like, Sean Connery used to be James Bond, and then he showed me the picture of him when he was younger, and I was like, wow, that really is Sean Connery, and then I was like, I got to see all of these, so then I started watching them because they used to pop up, every when I was in like middle school and high school, they used to have like the marathons where they'd show all the James Bonds. So I used to like TiVo. I would TiVo them, and then I watched them, and then um he was telling me that like Casino Royale was coming out, and he was like, this is gonna be a whole new Bond, da, 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 da. And like so I started with Casino Royale, and Casino Royale was like of course great, and Daniel Craig's really been great. So and I bought like all the video games and stuff like that, and that's how I really got hooked into it. Like I bought the books,
Yeah,
I've read the books, so like yeah. So long and short of it is like Mike, when you sent me that thing, I was sad, but when people live like just knowing like he spent the last 20 years just like chilling in like Scotland or wherever he was living, and just living out his days how he wanted to live them, and he lived a long life. Like I said, he in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, he had a whole nother career with Indiana Jones, Untouchables, and all what's that movie?
right.
Entrapment,
Untouchable.
The Rock.
I just want
Like
to.
yeah, like so he had like a whole another career, and then you go back to like the 60s and 70s, he was James Bond. So he lived a long and great life. So RIP Sean Connery, you will be missed. And you brought one of my favorite characters to life.